This episode of the Flush Podcast is brought to you by Federal Premium Ammunition, Benelli Shotguns, and Carlson's Choke Tubes, a shotgunning combination that we bring with us every day in the field. Today's guest is Durrell Smith. He's a young man that has a deep passion for the hunt, just like me. But Durrell's hunting journey looks a whole lot different than mine, simply because of the color of his skin. His story just might change you. Welcome to another episode of the Flush Podcast. My name is Travis Frank. I'm your host today, and I'm thankful to be joined by Durrell Smith. Durrell, welcome to the show.
What's going on, man? How are you? Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm doing well. I really appreciate taking the time to talk with us today. Just like so many Americans, I've spent the last several days doing a lot of watching and listening and praying and just really taking the time to consider how I treat people and how others treat people, both intentionally and unintentionally. And I can just tell you that I'm learning a lot. How about you?
Well, I'm definitely learning a lot. I'm sure by now everybody has either seen everything that's been out going on, and the thing that you said most important is praying. Okay, that there, I think we should always keep that in the front of our minds, and I have. I've noticed that has been a constant theme in your life, and it's a very, very constant theme in my life as well as my wife. So I definitely think we need a lot of that, going on right now. And I appreciate you, opening up with that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the death of George Floyd has had an effect on every single American outside of America as well. That man should be alive today. There's no doubt about it. He's not.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, we have really been given an opportunity that's really been there forever. We just haven't done it. But
Right.
to talk to each other about this, to talk
Mm-hmm.
openly and freely and have these conversations. And it's horrible that it's taken another man losing his life the way he did, being killed. And now we have really, over the last several days, made it a point to have these conversations. I'm a white
Right.
man. You're a black man. We both
Mm-hmm.
love to hunt, and yet it's different for me than it is for you. And
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's the reality, right?
Right. That is the reality. That I think it's one of those things that it beforehand and up to this point, really, it's either been seen and not discussed, it kind of swept under the rug, or it's not been seen, and for a lot of folks doesn't seem real. I think that's been something that has been my biggest issue with everything going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, I do not believe in coincidence. I've obviously, none of us have actually ever met George Floyd that I can think of, and whatever it was that triggered all of this is a signifier to me that man, first of all, his spirit was huge, and unfortunately, it set off a chain of events that have now set people into motion and opened up the conversation for people to actually want to talk about, and talk about solutions. Hunting has just been one of those things that, obviously is very important to me. It's very important to you, and it's very important to everybody listening to that. And I think that the thing that really got me is there's so much advocacy for everything else in the hunting industry, right? Like we've got
Hmm.
advocacy for conservation, we've got advocacy for public lands for different birds, we've got all of this stuff, and that's powerful, and it's very necessary. But are we advocating for ourselves? And are we advocating for the people around us? And advocating for better experiences for people that just quite frankly are gonna have a hard time either getting into it, finding a point of contact, or when you are into it, you know, feeling safe.
Yeah.
And that's something that just doesn't get discussed a lot. So I guess the can of worms popped open for me last week.
Well, we talked last week, and I remember talking to my wife and saying, "My gosh, I just wish we would have recorded our conversation last week because it was powerful." And truthfully, I've been watching the news, social
Mm-hmm.
media, my goodness, it is volatile. There's
Oh
so
yeah.
much on every side, but just the conversation that you and I had last week,
Mm-hmm.
it was so refreshing. It's so
Right.
refreshing because I just like we're human beings, right? We're both
Yeah.
human beings and
Yeah.
we can
Yeah.
care for each other. And I just, for the life of me, can't understand why human beings treat each other so differently because of the color of our skin. I
Mm-hmm.
can't. And I do know this, that because of the world that we live in now and the platforms that people have and the amount of ways that we can be talked at and told how to feel, that there's so many people that push back from it. But like
Yeah.
just our simple conversation, two men
Mm-hmm.
sitting on the
Mm-hmm.
phone talking about life and not dodging the realities of the way you grew up and your life
Mm-hmm.
and the way I grew up in my life. I just think it's my hope is that we can sort of, we're not going to relive our conversation from there, but I learned a lot about you. And I feel like if you're open to it, we just have this
Yeah.
conversation right now, and we talk about how I grew up and how you grew up, and get
Mm-hmm.
your story because you have your own story, and we're not going to tell people what they need to think or feel or do,
Mm-hmm.
but I just want I just want to tell your story. So,
Well,
are you
Travis,
good with this? Should we do it?
man, we got to do it, man. we
Okay.
we we,
All
we got to
right.
do it. We here. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So, Durrell, if you had to right now today sum up in a sentence or two, what do you do in the hunting industry?
All right. So, in summation, what it is that I do in the hunting industry, number one, probably most notably, I run my podcast, the Gun Dog Notebook podcast. And I have since the beginning been doing that since about 2017, and since partnered with Project Upland, and AJ and Chet and all of those guys are. Whoops, hold on, I gotta. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, sorry, my phone rang. So since since I've started with my podcast, I have partnered with Project Upland and also had a lot of opportunities to write. And a lot of my writing has gone to various, online publications in addition to print publications. Like I said, most namely the Project Upland magazine. That's been the most recent.
Mm-hmm.
I've had some stuff written for the Orders Hunting and Shooting blog. That in the past, I've had one for the Wild Rose Journal, and a couple of other different things. But basically, I'm a writer. I raise and train my own dogs. I've got my 3-year-old lab. I've got my year and a half old pointer. And I am, into field trialing. Hopefully we do well. This will be Vegas, my pointer. This will be his derby season. We ran him in a couple of trials last season, and he did well. We didn't place, but I was also running him above his age bracket, so I just like the competition. I guide guide hunts for the Birds Club here in Atlanta, and I'm going to start kind of taking on wild bird hunts on my own as well, guided hunts for that. And I am a sporting dog artist. So I've got my art career that kind of trickles into bird dogs as well. So a whole gamut of things.
And you're a father, and you're a
And
teacher.
I'm a father.
Yeah,
Yep, yep,
yeah.
yep. I'm a father. So I teach middle school. I've got a 9 month old, and my wife's got one in the oven now. So yeah, man. I got a lot going on right now.
You do, you do. Well, I've got 3 kids under the age of 6. It's crazy, but
Oh
it's
man,
wonderful.
look,
It's wonderful.
I'm gonna be calling you about some rough nights ahead. So
Please do. I will. You can cry on my shoulder. I've been there. I assure you, I have been
okay,
there. Where did so
okay.
you're very busy in the hunting world, but this is all recent, right? You didn't grow up hunting. Take me back
No,
way when you were a kid. Did you hunt at all when you were a child?
um, I'm not gonna call shooting squirrels with BB guns hunting.
Hmm.
That is what my grandfather and I did. Just, I mean, that's just, he would teach me how to shoot. He was a postal inspector. So I grew up around firearms and knew how to handle and stuff like that. And he taught me a lot of that. But probably like a lot of kids, I was, a force to be reckoned with a BB gun. And I mean, I didn't do any kind of serious hunting. I didn't have bird dogs growing up. Quite frankly, didn't know. The only thing I knew about any kind of hunting related dog was hounds. That's it. I mean, and I didn't really know a whole lot about that. Um, and I'm born and raised in Atlanta, and probably one of the few natives here. Me and my wife are probably one of the few actual natives in Atlanta, in the city. And it was just something that, like, I went to private school my whole life, and I told you this the other day, but I would see. I played sports. I played soccer, and I ran track, the 400-meter hurdles, and I never had a chance to really get out and like go hunting, and I didn't know anything about it. But the school that I went to in high school and some in middle school, so I went to Woodward Academy Middle School and Landmark Christian in high school. And in high school, I would see friends of mine like during this one part of the year, right? Like it was one part of the year where they would start missing school for like whatever reason. Like I would come and they just wouldn't be there, and they would come
Hunting
back.
season?
Yeah, hunting season. Right around November, they start missing school. And I was like, what in the world? Where are y'all going? And a lot of their fathers owned, property. I come to find out later that a buddy of mine, his dad actually owns a hunting club down here. I would have never known. But they would be gone during hunting season, and they would come back. I mean, just eyes wide open. Had talk about they had the time of their life, right?
Hmm.
And that to me, I was like, well, dang, that seems real cool. Like I wish that I could do the same thing, but again, there was no entry point. There was no connection. My dad, he didn't hunt. My grandfather actually was more familiar with it because he's from Columbus, Georgia, but he wasn't hunting in either. And
So can I ask you? Can I ask you this? Sorry to interrupt, but
yeah,
why didn't you go? Why didn't you go with your friends?
I didn't know how to ask, and I just didn't. One of those things where you're a young black kid, you ask your parents to go to the woods, shoot guns, and do what with the stuff you come back with? You see what I'm saying? Like it
Hmm.
that was there was no way that I could have asked, and that wasn't. important. The list of things that I had to do to be able to go to college. On my weekends, I was in competitive sports. That was, it was either that or academics that was going to, kind of take priority. And not knowing about hunting in a lot of our communities, it just seems like you just going out with a bunch of white guys to shoot stuff. You see what I'm saying? Like that's not like
Mm-hmm.
a
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
I didn't know how to articulate why I was so interested in that, because again, as a kid, all we did in the backyard was just shoot at squirrels and periodically hit them. That there's no, and that's and we should never be doing it. First of all, like I don't care what you're shooting at or what you're hunting. That's not okay, but just the reality of it, that's what we did as kids. Like, I mean, like little kids. And so I I didn't know how to articulate that to my parents. Nor did nor could I tell them where I was going, why, there's just a lot of variables to in a being inhibited from going out hunting and growing up doing that.
Yeah. Well, I grew up going hunting with my buddies here, so it's all I know. I guess I don't understand why you wouldn't just say, "Hey, I want to go with," or "I want to try it." But you mentioned something the other day that was interesting, but it's just that's not what black kids did.
That's like I said, we our way into the next level of economic success is you go to college, you do well in school. You see what I'm saying? You look for a
Hmm.
scholarship, um, or we were playing sports. I mean, all of the kids in my neighborhood, we were all talented. It was either, and I hate giving this narrative because a lot of the times it seems sometimes it comes off like that's all black people do, but and it's not. But you play football, you play basketball, you run track, you get a scholarship for it, you go to college, you get out of college, you find a good job, and you may have an opportunity to pursue something you're passionate about in your free time. But hunting, that's not on the list of priorities when your parents, my parents, they came from old Atlanta, and it was not as promising, as some other parts in the world. And so they were like, look, we worked this hard to keep you in private school. We need you to focus, do well in school, and get out and go make something of yourself. Hunting wasn't like that's not really on the list of priorities. I mean, I skateboarded back then, around the city and things like that. But I mean, that's just kind of something you do. It didn't take much to do that. I can go out and do that in the front yard. But hunting, that's not,
Yeah.
that's not a normal thing for folks that grow up, in or around, city environments. And much less
So,
with a dog like that even takes it a step forward. Knowing what it takes to raise a bird dog, right? Like I've got a pointer, and that joker there he's a handful. My parents, they
right.
were like, at most, I mean, my mom got me like little cocker spaniel stuff that you can keep around the house, but who has time to go and raise and train a bird dog? Not here.
So, what changed then? At what point of your life did you say, "I want to try hunting," and how did you get to that point?
It changed when I got out of college and got on my own. I didn't have anybody telling me what to focus on. You see, like there was okay. I'm out of college. I'm making some money on my own. I got my own house. I got my own time. I'm not asking, mom and dad, hey, can I go here or can I go there? It's the freedom of, okay, now I've got time. I've got time on the weekends.
Hmm.
I'm not competing competitively for something. I'm not trying to get a scholarship. I'm not trying to get out of my parents' house. I'm not, there's all of these things.
Hmm.
And I had gotten into education. So to my grandfather, who is a father, my father figure, like that was like, okay, you're doing good. You've done what we asked you to do. Now, whatever you want to do was on you. So at that point, I was like, all right, well, I need something else to take take my mind out of school. I also taught in a Title I school, which to anybody that's an educator, like that's a tough environment. It's a very tough. I was teaching sixth, seventh, and eighth grade art. I was the only art teacher there. And out of the many things that I would see on a normal day basis, getting out and just walking out in the woods. I mean, I've always, my family would go hiking, like we've still got woods here in Atlanta. So I was used to playing outside. So getting back outside in the outdoors, now that I've got a job, I've got some stability. Now we can kind of go on out there.
Hmm.
But before, you know, in our culture, I mean, there's like a look. We need you to make it. We need you to focus. And then when you get out and you are off of our watch, do what you want to do. And so I was like, all right, well, I got the time. Now let's go do something that I'd always been interested in. And I remembered back to high school where I was like, dang, I always really wanted to try that. But
Hmm.
now we've got the issue of, well, where do I start? Because I like it still. It has always been in the back of my mind. Um,
Hmm.
and ironically, I went to Albany State University. I was down in plantation country in college, and looking back on it, there were like hints of it that would pop up. But even in college, like I wasn't focused on that. I was focused on getting out of college and running track and keeping my scholarship, for however long that I did. Because I ran for 3 years and then I jumped into my art career heavily. So the last year I didn't run. So it was just a matter of priority. And, being able to pay for a good dog, it took me a minute to even get to that point. But once I got into hunting, there were no images of black folks hunting. That wasn't a thing. So now I'm I've been interested in this predominantly white world, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna do this regardless. Like I guess I'll just have to teach myself or whatever the case. And so I got online and looked up. I knew there were clubs in hunting, so I looked up like black hunting clubs in Atlanta just to see. And there was one that popped up. There was one, and it was fairly new. And a guy, the president of it was is a guy named Eric Morris, who was my mentor. Well, Eric, much like yourself, I think he's from Alabama. He grew up hunting and stuff like that, but Eric has spent years trying to advocate for, you know, minorities getting into the hunting industry, but he was really the only one that was really trying to take on that initiative. So when I called him, I think he was like out of town or something like that, and he was just kind of getting the club started in Atlanta. And we had emailed a couple of times, and then a few months later, he called me and was like, "Hey, we're going to have a club meeting." Well, we had the meeting at this place, Tom Low Trap and Skeet Range. And even that, like, I didn't know anything about trap shooting or skeet shooting or anything like that. So I pull up to the range, and ironically, this range is buried off kind of in the cut of the predominantly black side of town. But I would have never known. Like, my wife and I had no idea that was even over there. And when we got there, I pulled up and I noticed that the school that I used to go to, Woodward, they actually had a trap and skeet shooting team. that practiced at that range, but we never knew. Like it was never communicated. So all of this stuff is kind of coming together, and I'm like, what in the world? Like this is a whole new era, new avenue.
So this wasn't there when you grew up then?
I don't think it was there. And if it was
Okay.
there, we never I don't think it was there. And if it was there, we didn't hear about it.
Okay.
Like I did not hear about it. And I drove down that road 50 million times, and that was never something that was advertised.
So what happened when you
And
got there?
when I got there, there's a bunch of white guys there. And they're cool. They're like, hey, how can we help you, so on and so forth. And Eric is in. He's booked a room in a lodge, and I think there was a handful of us that were in the room. It was mostly guys. I don't think women. I don't remember seeing any women there until a little bit later. And Eric was basically like, this is how you get into hunting, and I'll show you how to do it. At that point, I was like, okay, we're in. And I gravitated towards Eric, and he took me out. Um, he taught me about different kinds of shotguns. He taught me about how to hunt different types of game. We would go squirrel hunting, and like proper squirrel hunting. We went deer hunting a couple of times, and I think that was my other point. I was like, I don't really like sitting in trees. I don't really like the waiting game. And so it took me a while to filter out what it was that I wanted to do and wanted to see. And even in that, I still didn't have the the enthusiasm about deer hunting that so many people do, which I just didn't connect to it. And so I knew by this point in time, I've had a number of pit bulls over the course of my life, and the last one that I ended up having to rehome her. She got real aggressive, and I just started dating my wife, and that wasn't gonna work. That wasn't gonna work. Um,
Right.
and and so I ended up having to rehome her. Well, I ended up saying, okay, I want a dog, and I had this. I didn't know really what I wanted to do, so Eric took me out quail hunting, but it was preserved birds. It wasn't like wild quail. I still had no idea what this was, and I had
Okay.
my shotgun and all of that stuff. And I mean, he's got this nice sized Chesapeake Bay Retriever, which is not the usual quail dog that you would think of.
Right. That's not
It
what you
just
think of,
wasn't.
right?
Right. But I mean, this dog worked his butt off. I mean, worked his butt, and we hunted all day. To this day, I've never seen a dog like that hunt all day as hard as he did. But then, you know, we would take Razor out, and he could go track deer for Eric. He was telling me all of this stuff, and we would see it. He could go, retrieve squirrels. He was just an all around dog. And I was like, dang. And Eric started telling me more about African American history and how we would have to be creative with the use of our dogs. And I was like, this is kind of cool. So then I did a little bit more online searching, and I was like, I'm going to get me a Labrador. I want a dog. My wife was cool. Well, she was my girlfriend at the time, but I told her, I was like, I think I'm going to get me another dog. And I went and got a Labrador, Ruger, my lab now. And he is not a dog trainer. He just got a good dog, and they hunt and they spend a lot of time together. But I was like, all right, well, I used to train my pit bulls to do all kinds of cool stuff. I'm going to train this dog by myself. To still no connection to anything bird dog related, like no connection. And I'm going out to places, and kind of like I'm still the only black guy there with
So
a young lab.
Eric, can I ask? Eric
Yeah,
he's the one that started this club, right? But
yeah.
you said he grew up hunting, so he's a white man. Is that correct?
No, Eric is black. He's one of the few
Oh,
black guys here in Atlanta. He
okay.
moved here. Like Eric traveled. He was in the military for the longest time. And after he retired, he had, because his experience is one of the few that were here in the city that actually grew up hunting, but none of us knew about him. I mean, he had been trying to make connections for years, and slowly the club started picking up. But I didn't know Eric until I went online and just so happened to find the one person in the whole city of Atlanta that was actually trying to advocate for that. And Eric still was on the other side of town. So I still had to go to him. And he was doing all kinds of stuff. So I got my lab and I ended up going to some of these, hunting clubs and things like that. By then I was starting to hear about, Ducks Unlimited and things like that. And again, it was because of Eric that I even found out about Ducks Unlimited. And we would go to these, DU chapter meetings, and we were the only guys there, the only black guys there.
What
And a
did
lot of the
how did you feel when you'd walk in there?
time, it's different. You just know like it's the obvious feeling of, am I here? Like, I don't really feel like I'm supposed to be here. It you just notice that you stand out. It wasn't till later that I started getting kind of some negative comments, and it didn't come from DU. It came from some other people. I'll tell you about that too. But I mean, it's kind of it's nervous. Like you walk into this, either at somebody's house or to some club or something like that, and you just stand out. And you don't really know a lot, so you don't really have a voice either. You're coming in to learn. And I just didn't feel a connection. Like I was just like, what am I doing here? And it took
How
a
do you?
while. Hmm.
I was going to say, how do you convince yourself to just keep on going?
That's the thing. So you realize that, all right, if I stop going because I'm starting to feel out of place, if I
Hmm.
stop going, then I'm giving up on something that I'm interested in. But if I keep going, how far down the rabbit hole am I going to be before, like most other things in the South or in America, really, you be black long enough in something, you're gonna hear or see something that is going to bother you or something that's gonna make you uncomfortable. And it's kind of like, all right, well, at least if I don't connect with these guys, I've got one buddy that's in it. I guess I'll just try to work on his schedule and go hunting with him. And so and the one thing is you just don't want to give up on something you're interested in. And I think that's the thing that I've always tried to keep in the back of my mind. Like, look, regardless, use it as an experience and move forward. If you got to learn on your own, you just got to learn on your own. Um, like I said, there was still no connection. And there's been a couple of times where I would go out and I would you kind of see people like talking to each other under their breath, and you kind of know they're kind of looking at you like, who is this guy? And you start to bring your dogs around, and there's this other pressure about that too, because now you're the only person in this particular industry that's a minority, and this boy better not bring this dog up here and mess up our hunt. You see what I'm saying? And so there's that pressure
Hmm.
of, oh shoot, I've always felt the pressure of my dog needs to be up to par. But I just never connected with any of these major organizations that I had been a part of up to that point, because there was nobody there that looked like me.
Hmm.
And so, I mean, I knew I was never going to be a chapter president if I was interested in that. I knew that wasn't on the books.
Really? You don't
Um,
think you can?
Man, no, that's not, that's not something that I ever saw as like an opportunity. I mean, I know I could be involved,
Hmm.
um, but I didn't see anybody. I just knew that, okay, yeah, you're welcome here, and you're welcome to participate in things like that. But I didn't feel like I was ever, because I didn't connect to them. So what was I
Yeah.
going to say?
So a lot of people listening right now might say, gosh, that was a long time ago. It's different today. No, you're telling us a story from 2 years ago, aren't you? Last year, the year
This
before?
is this. So we're thinking, yeah, 2018. By 2018, this had kind of started rolling around.
Because
You
you've
know,
only
so
been
this
hunting. This all started in.
I'd
You haven't
say
had a dog for 4 years, right?
I got my dog. I got Ruger August of 2016. August of 2016 is when I got him. I didn't really get into like actually starting to hunt until 2017. I had him. I've been training him for the latter part of the year, kind of taking him out and trying to figure my way out. But I wouldn't say I got my feet up under me until 2017. So that's about 3 years.
Okay.
3 years
Do you
ago, and then I
think?
didn't get my. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, do you think you would have been able to do it without Eric?
Um, I would have fumbled around for a very long time, a very, very, very long time, because Eric was the thing that when I went out, I knew that if I knew I wasn't by myself. You see what I'm saying? And that was something that
Mm-hmm.
helped my argument when I was going out and telling my wife I wanted to hunt. Again, we were dating at the time, but you get the
Mm-hmm.
look of, so you about to go out to the woods by yourself with a bunch of white guys and guns. Huh. Georgia is also is known, obviously, Ahmaud Arbery and stuff like. There are still cases like that that still pop up in South Georgia. So, eh,
Cases
you know,
explain that though. Explain just because that
well, I mean,
matters.
there.
Like,
All right. So the Ahmaud Arbery case in relation
mhm.
to being black, just in America, really, but especially in the South, that is not something that is unheard of. Ahmaud Arbery, that case went on for what, like 2 months, and nobody even heard about it until the video leaked, and it was very obvious and very blatant. It is very well known that there are still instances of racism down here, and people that will actually do something. You're in the backwoods of Georgia, chasing deer, chasing birds, whatever the case may be. And you very well could come across somebody that, and I mean, from the moment that you leave your house, you could very well come across somebody that does not want you there. And I have met people that have told me, this ain't really your ballpark. And cases like the Arbery case, I mean, think about it. Those folks hunted him down. Like, they literally chased that man as he was jogging, got out and killed him. That is not an unfamiliar thing. My grandfather would tell me stories in the inspection service of folks being in the KKK. You see what I'm saying? And trying
Yeah.
to
No.
intimidate him. So we've always, as a black person here, you always grow up knowing that, like, don't go to the woods because you could show up, you know, missing, or don't go to the woods by yourself unless you know somebody that is very, very experienced for the same reason, or just for the simple fact of, you know, uh, if I put my shotgun in the truck and I'm a legal card carrying, firearms owner, I have a pistol. that I'm legally obligated, allowed to keep in my
Yep.
car and stuff like that. Stuff like that still happens where, okay, cop or somebody, I get pulled over for whatever reason for being in the wrong side of town and I stand out and you get pulled over literally for being black and they see a firearm. It doesn't matter whether it's locked up or not.
Or that
Something
you have
happens to you
camouflage or hunting
or that
clothes
I have,
with.
yeah, none of that matters. People don't ask you those questions. And so I could go out, be minding my own business, going hunting, cop gets intimidated by God knows what or scared, who knows. I end up, something ends up happening to me. And it's very easy to say, oh, well, he pulled a gun on me. No, I didn't. You see what I'm saying? Like those
Yep.
types of
Yep. I hear you.
questions don't, those types of questions don't ask. So to go hunting, by yourself, like, I wanted to go coon hunting and stuff like that, when I first started. And my wife was adamantly against that. And I,
Why?
understood why. Coon
Why?
hunting, you have to go out at night, like you go out at night. I didn't know
Hmm.
anybody. So I was very likely going to have to find somebody that did it. I didn't know any black people that coon hunted. None. I mean,
Hmm.
and so what? Go out with a bunch of white guys that live out in the back country at 3 o'clock in the morning to chase a raccoon. You try to explain that to anybody and on this side of the community, and you're gonna get some eyes raised. Like, so you gonna do what? Hmm.
Did you do it then?
Okay.
Did you go?
I went once with Eric. I went once with Eric, and he and I both that was the only reason why I could go. And we never found anything, but I never went with anybody else because it didn't feel safe. It just didn't.
How
You know,
far do you have to drive to where you can hunt? And it's a public land that you can hunt on, or that you hunt
yeah.
on down there
So
mainly, or okay?
down here, it's public land. So if you want to like get into deer hunting, and this was something we didn't know about here either, you can actually archery hunt right outside of the city limits of Fulton County, which is the county I grew up in. You go, but to get to actual decent hunting, you're probably going to drive anywhere from 2 hours, and a normal drive for me is about 4 to get down to South Georgia. So from Atlanta to Thomasville is 4 hours. And so I will, if I, and some of my other places, I go to South Alabama. That's 3 hours. So, I mean, you're talking about getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning to be at the place where I go to be there by sunrise in the middle of the woods. I don't have service. There are a lot of potholes in that, in
Mhm.
that
Yeah,
neighborhood.
you mentioned to me. I mean, there's a couple things that you told me the other day that really stood out to me, and I've really just been sitting on them a lot because I can't say that I've ever been in a position like it. Is one, when you're driving to your hunting location,
Mm-hmm.
you're nervous or a bit scared the entire way there because you have shotguns in your vehicle. And
Right.
two, that you tell your wife exactly where you're going to go. You give her
Mm-hmm.
GPS coordinates and you don't go anywhere else because you want to make sure that she knows where you're going to be
Right.
because there are black men that disappear in the woods.
Right. And they're black, and even outside of the woods. I mean, as we've seen it, like you can get killed in the middle of the street, and somebody be recording it. So it's everywhere,
Hmm.
really. But
Hmm.
yes, so the routine that we have, my wife knows all of my, you know, hunting coordinates. She is. I might as well sign her up for my Onyx map stuff. Like,
Yeah.
she knows all of
we
my hunting
laugh
coordinates.
at that, but that's not something that we should ever
Hmm.
laugh at. Like I can't wrap my head around that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way to be safe. I mean, it just is. Um, there are in this community, unfortunately, there are people that do not want or choose to not see the issue at hand, and so and there are people that resist minority, participation, and historically that has been happening. That's a whole nother thing. But the routine, I tell my wife, what time I'm leaving the house because she's normally asleep. Um, where I'm going, usually how long it takes for me to get there, because I know these places are usually not going to have a signal. I generally call her when I get to the place. Hey, I'm here, I'm good. And if I decide to, or I'm sorry, when I take a break about midday, go back to the signal area. Hey, we good? And what time I plan on leaving to come back home. At that point, if I decide to change locations, um, I of course have to tell her, hey, look, this is where I'm going. Um, and that's because now I'm because I know what I'm doing. I know how to kind of navigate stuff. I know where I'm going, and I kind of know the general area. And I usually try to hunt around the same areas. Um, and I don't really go with a lot of new people. I go with people that I've met in of any race, but I go with people I've met and I've been afforded, that privilege because of some of the stuff that I've done through my platform. But you know, 2 years ago, I mean that going hunting by yourself, that wasn't a thing. Like
Wow.
that was not a thing. And again, there are issues with even some of the ways that people get land access. So I hear stories about guys like, oh yeah, man, like go up and knock on this person's door and if it's private, ask if you can hunt that land. Who do you know black that's gonna do that down here? No one. Like I'm not about to walk up to somebody's door, knock, just random black guy knock on your door and say, hey, can I walk your property with a
Hmm.
gun chasing birds? And there are some people that will understand that. Like we are obviously in a much better place in 2020 than so long ago. But there are still people that are like, who are you and why are you here? If I can't be in a white neighborhood, even here in Atlanta, and not get funny looks, I might just be jogging. I could be driving through, whatever the case may be. You will get sometimes, like there have been instances where people have called the cops for
On
black people
you?
just being in the neighborhood.
Oh,
No,
just being
I've had my
okay.
own, yeah, just being in there, and I've literally just my own personal recollection. I got pulled over by a cop down here is a city called Fairburn when I was 17 years old, driving, and this has nothing to do with hunting, but just to kind of give you the idea of getting pulled over by when just for being there, right?
Hmm.
So
Yep.
I had my brother. We went to private school. We got a whole uniform on, and so on and so forth. It is very clear where we are going. I woke up late. Me and my brother in the car. My brother is 5 years older, 5 years younger than me, so I was 12 years old. I'm sorry, he was 12 years old, and I was 17 at the time. I'm driving, taking him to school, and I'm speeding probably about 5 miles over the speed limit. Sit, not doing anything, not swerving. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning. So I get pulled over by a white cop, and usually, if there's an issue, especially with speeding, you just get a ticket and you're going about your way, especially if I'm on the way to school. And the school was very well known in that area. It's a very prominent private school. By the end of that interaction, I was in handcuffs, and the cop said that there was no his excuse was there was no insurance on my car, which is BS because my dad had insurance. My dad worked a very, very, very good job. Like we just don't drive around without insurance. I'm in handcuffs. They're, trying to obviously tow my car and stuff. They're getting all of that stuff situated. There's this one white cop, mind you. I've still got a 12-year-old little boy in my passenger seat that's still got to go to school, and we're right down the street. So back then we had flip phones. And I'm texting my dad from behind my back, to say, hey, this is what's happening. This is what's going on. My brother is watching me get arrested. And so now I'm like, and he's like, well, get in the car, get in the car. The cop is. And that puts me in a weird kind of position because now you're forcing me to have to make a decision on to object to what you're saying because you're going to leave my 12-year-old brother out here in the middle of the road and somewhere he is not familiar with. You see what I'm saying? You see what kind of position that puts me in at 17 years old?
Yeah,
And
yeah. I mean,
and
can you
so
give more details on that though? Like what specifically was he asking you to do?
he was asking me to get in the car so he could take me to jail
For what?
for nothing. I had insurance on the car. He lied and say I didn't have insurance just to put me in handcuffs and put me in jail. My brother's sitting on the side of the road crying, like bawling. And I sat there and told him I'm not getting into the car at least till somebody comes and gets my brother and takes him to school. There was insurance on the car. He had no reason to put me in handcuffs for even what I was doing wrong, which was just speeding a couple of miles over the speed limit. That's a
Right.
ticket. That is not jail time. You see what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
that's not, you don't do that. And so he ends up calling another cop and puts my brother in that cop car to try to make a point and drops my brother off at school. So my 12-year-old brother gets dropped off at a private school, a predominantly white private school. He gets dropped off in a cop car. What image does that show you? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm getting taken to jail and I miss half a day of school for what? Nothing. And when I got to the jail, there was a black clerk there and she was like, baby, you know what this is. Like, you were not supposed to come to jail. You already know what this is. And so things like that happen on
Hmm.
the regular. You don't time it. You don't do anything. It just happens. And of course, I have to go to court for it, and the judge drops it because I shouldn't have been locked up, and there was no
Right.
way to justify it. There was no way to justify that, and I worry. Like ever since then, I worry about. Okay, so what happens if I'm driving to a hunting spot? Like I said, I've got guns in the car. So now if I get arrested, you're gonna leave my dogs on the back of the truck? My truck gonna
Hmm.
get impounded? Like what? You see what I'm saying? There's a chain
Yep.
of events that go on with that.
So
There's so many.
you can never go hunting without having worry follow you into the field. The place where you
Yeah,
want to go
no,
to escape, the place that, I mean, for me personally, it's one of my mental escapes to just walk the field, be carefree, and you're out there on the way there you're worried. When you're in the woods,
you're
you're
worried.
afraid.
There's that you don't get away from that thought and that fear that's like, okay,
Hmm.
know where you are.
So why
This
do
is
you
great.
do you suppose this is why there are so few black hunters then?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's that. Um, when we think, let's just go back in history, right? Let's take some decades back. All right. After Jim Crow ended, like because the majority of black folks that were hunting primarily were in the South. Okay, they were down here in the South.
Hmm.
Well, after Jim Crow and slavery and all of that stuff ended, black folk got out of here. They headed north and went to the cities. You see what I'm saying? To get
Yep.
away from all of this. This was something that we were used to doing in the earliest days of hunting. Those of us that are still down here are the descendants of, like Neil and all my buddies. They're the descendants of guys that worked on the plantations, and that stuff got passed down. But predominantly, Black folks left the South to get away from all of this stuff. And so historically, that narrative has been passed down. Like, hunting has its negative connotations. It has its connotations with, very, very racist people.
Mm-hmm.
And there has been some truth to that just over time. And so you've got that. There are no representatives in it. I mean, like I said, it took me a while to find Eric. And then I haven't even gotten to finding Neil and all of those guys. So the other issue is we're out there, but we're scattered. You look anywhere for, what do you see in most or and when I was teaching, right? Or not when I was teaching, for a Title I school, like most kids, they wanted to grow up to be athletes, most of them. Why? Because that's what they saw. We're very, very talented at sports. Usually that's a means of getting through college, having the money to pay for it. And I see people in it that look like me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with hunting, I don't know any African American icons that are just prevalent. There is one guy that I really, really like to look at is Steven Rinella. Like, I love his podcast and everything like that. Where
Yep.
are any Black Steven Rinellas?
Right. Right.
There are none. So
Well, I
the
think I'm
point of
talking to one right now, I would say. I seriously, yeah,
I
you're
take that
100.
as a compliment, but
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is a reality, right? It's not like
yeah,
I could go find hundreds or thousands of people to interview today, tomorrow, the next day, but this is a topic that we got to talk about
yeah,
because I can't I can't find hundreds of Durrell Smiths out there that are pushing through this barrier to do something that we all take for granted, right?
yeah, yeah.
Because I
Well,
mean, last week when we were talking last week, the you say plantation, which is where a lot of the hunting
oh,
happens in the South, right?
hmm,
And you instinctively want to run as far away from it as possible, right?
oh yeah, absolutely. The moment that when I got into this and started meeting my buddies from the Georgia Florida Shooting Dog Handlers Club, like when I started going down there and actually stepped foot on plantations, and the first matter of fact, the my dog's first hunt test, my lab, the first and only hunt test I ever ran him in. I just wasn't really into it after that. I mean, it was fun, but the very first hunt test that I went to was on a plantation. And I think the image and the history of plantations has been so far embedded in fear and in the Black community, and rightfully so. I mean, we all know what happened there. And so I think there has been an ingrained fear of it. So, my wife and I were driving to this place. It looks like, I mean, it looks like Roots, the movie, like that type of situation. The overhanging trees and a long driveway and all of that stuff. And it's beautiful, but it's still kind of haunting, right? Like
Yeah.
it's everything that I appreciate about Georgia and plantation country, right? That I can appreciate now, knowing and being welcome to these places. But when you are a stranger in a very, very unfamiliar place, that is a very haunting um thing. It's like, okay. And even my wife was like, oh, this is where we going. All right. So when it start getting dark, we need to head on out,
Mhm.
and when you get there, some places, that they were the old slave quarters. They're probably either unused or renovated at this point, but I mean, you know it when you see it. There is just that energy that still kind of looms over it. So, a lot of black folks, I've had this conversation. My wife we talk about this a lot because she is like an editor for me. She is my editor, more or less. Like, and I'm writing about some of this stuff, and she's just like, hold on, like, you need to think about what you're writing and how it and what you're saying, because to the black community, you're gonna get side eyes about going to plantations and the use and being there. So you need to be careful about the way that you word it, because in one hand, it's like I want to celebrate the plantations now because of field trials that they're held on, things like that. But in our community, it's just like, so scratch all of that. What are you doing on a plantation? At the end of the day, like that, like my grandfather, like when I told him that, he grew up in the time of civil rights. Like, you went to where? And I start to have to try to explain that in a way that tells the narrative now without disregarding what happened in the past, because that is still a very, very prevalent thing. At no point can I ever be like, oh, well, they're great, and it's awesome now, but at no point am I going to be able to forget or dismiss the image that they present themselves way back in the day. I'm always conscious of that.
Does your family support your your passion now in going out
Now, yeah.
to? Okay.
Yeah. So it was a jump. I mean, it was a challenge, for my folks to be like, so you're going to do this? All right. How is that going to work? Um, my granddad has always been very, very supportive of me anyway. He's just always like, look, man, just be careful, just be careful in how you go about doing things. Because at the end of the day, you still black. Like, don't forget that now. You
When
know,
you show
um,
up, when you show up on a plantation with other people to hunt, is it just one of those things where you don't talk about it? You're a black man walking around there, doing the same thing everyone else is doing. You just don't talk about it. Everyone knows it. Or do you feel like you can have that conversation?
the first time, all right. So I've actually had some unique, I'll give you one unique experience. I might have mentioned this to you last week, but all right. Usually it's something that is unsaid. So I went to one plantation here. I was the only black guy. I knew it. I felt it. It was, an organization's banquet. I knew it and I felt it. I knew everything about that was off. All right. That was the first time. And I didn't need to talk about it. I just didn't feel good about it. All right. So the second time I'd gone to um, a different plantation. So this was that hunt test that my dog was running, my lab. It was actually very interesting. It was a white guy that came up to me. His name was Gary. This white guy that came up to me and was like, "Hey man," like I'm sitting by the truck and my wife and I are talking, and he was like, "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" And I was like, "Yeah, what's up?" I just cool, no problem. And he's like, "I want to thank you." Yeah, what are you thanking me for? Like, you're not thanking me for my dog passing a test. Like, what are you thanking me for? And he's like, I want to thank you for showing up. He was like, and this really resonated with me. And this is how I know that we are in a space where we can have these dialogues. He says, well, I want to thank you for showing up because You're the only black guy that's ever come out here. And I don't know if anybody else was going to say it. It's obvious. We all know it. We see it. But I personally want to thank you because we need more of you here. And I'd never experienced that before, like being out in the hunting industry. Like nobody had said that to me before. He was an older white guy. And I was like, whoa, hold on. And I just appreciated the boldness that came with that, you know? And that
Right.
was the thing that really made me feel a little more confident about going to some of these places. Because that gentleman, Gary, was like, no, let's just be straight up. You are out of place. You stand out like a sore thumb here. But thank you for taking the initiative and showing up despite what I know this might can feel like. My wife heard it, everybody, and I was like, okay, cool. All right.
Well, see,
Like
I
this,
see a lot of people would avoid, they would just, it's more comfortable to not talk about it.
and
It's
that is the issue.
uncomfortable. Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's the tough part, because look at what
Yeah.
one person who is willing to just stand up and say, "Thank you for being here." What that does for you. It stuck with you. It sticks with you. It
Yeah,
encourages
I
you
will
to.
never forget that.
Well,
I
I'm
mean,
so
I
thankful for
when I
Gary then. I'm so thankful
yeah,
for Gary.
seriously. I it that stuck with me. And so now, I've got buddies, my good buddy Terry Chastain. Terry has been super integral, just a dang good friend. Terry's a white guy. And that conversation is different because we're friends, and we met at the Black Handlers trial in 2019. The year that we filmed the Project Upland Hard Day Riding film is the year that I met at that same trial that I met Terry. And Terry and his father grew up with black dog handlers, and they're from Thomasville though, like they're from down there. And so I was sitting. Terry had broken his leg, so he wasn't riding a horse that day. And I think that's, we were supposed to meet each other that day. And so, when all of this stuff started popping up with all of this George Floyd stuff and all of that, Terry and I spoke. Terry has loaned me his horse. Terry has just been super open, has invited me down to come, work dogs with him down where he works at now. And he is one of the few white guys that I know of that we haven't open dialogue about the issues at hand, And Terry's just like, I'd rather you keep it real. Like, look, this is the issue. This is something we don't see very much. Let's talk about it. Kind of like much like what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Terry has been like, man, I get it. I get it. I see it. Fortunately, he grew up. His dad was a great dog trainer, so he grew up with other black handlers, and so though he never, perpetuated stereotypes and stuff like that, Terry's also been real. He was like, man, I know plenty of people that will either shy away from it or just, act like it doesn't affect them. And that's just the real conversation that we have, between us two.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it takes a while to build up that kind of relationship with folks. It does.
Yeah.
I just, half the time when I go out hunting, like I said, I hunt with friends, but I'm not really itching to have oh, you're black conversation when I already know, yes, I'm out of place. Like that's usually not something I'm really trying to bring up. But when you
Mm-hmm.
have that connection to people, it makes me feel a lot better, to be honest and upfront. It lets me know that there are people that are actually willing to do something to change the narrative. And it lets me know also that, look, we can be real. This is an obvious thing. It just is.
Right.
Um,
I think once you get into the field, I mean, I think by nature, those of us that seek the outdoors and the hunting or the fishing, but just really seeking to get away in the outdoors, we do it to get away from
mhm.
all of the news and work life and just being able to disconnect for a little bit. And so I feel like maybe we avoid these kind of conversations because by nature we just want to avoid conversations in general. But you spend a day out in a field with somebody, like if you
Mhm.
and I, I gosh, I hope someday I get to hunt with you.
Likewise,
We,
likewise.
yeah, we spend a day together in the field. I mean, you just leave that space with the respect
Mhm.
for each other, but you can get into these conversations, into these deep conversations. And like today, we're talking about stuff that
Mhm.
we wouldn't have talked about two
Yeah.
weeks
Well,
ago,
I
probably two
should
weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, right? And
Yeah.
I if I'm out there hunting with you, and I said this before on the little social media takeover I did with Project Upland, but I've said this before. If I can sit down, well, if I can walk through the woods with you all day, all right, race, whatever. If I can walk through the woods with you all day and sit at the back of the tailgate at the end of a very good hunt, to me, that's a very personal and a very intimate type of moment, right? Like
Hmm.
you're reveling in that success. You're absorbing all of this good energy, right? You're laughing. You saw my dog act crazy. You saw my dog point well. You saw your dog back. You saw your dog this. There's all of these very, very, very positive things. And very few people get a chance to witness and experience those things with someone else, right? So if I
Hmm.
can go through all of those, that mix of emotions and all of that stuff, and I can crack on you for missing shots and all kind, just everything that we have, we should be able to care enough about somebody else to say, hey, what's bothering you today? Or hey, what's eating? Or hey, what is your experience like? Like I
Hmm.
care enough to care about your experience in the uplands. And even let's talk about mentorship. That's what mentorship
Right.
is caring enough about someone to nurture their experience in the uplands. Gary cared enough about me to be upfront and say, I know you're out of place, but thank you.
Hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Like that's the
Yep.
type of connection that we need to have, not shying away from it because it either doesn't affect us or we want to run away from it. I would love to not think that stuff when I walk out of my door and get in my car. You know, something that my dad said to me when I was a kid, and I didn't I understood it as a young black child was he was like, what I care about the most when I leave the house every day. I say, well, what? And he was like, getting back home. That is what I care about the most. And you do whatever you got to do to get back home, to get back to my and that was and we were talking about a buddy of his, if I remember correctly, a buddy of his basically um, going off on a cop. He was like, we can't do that. Like, you got to do whatever you got to do to get home and in the safest, most legal way possible.
Right.
And it's things like that I would love to turn off and be like, oh, I don't have to worry about this. I you can do whatever, but that's not my reality. And at this point in time, let's just confront that I mean,
Yep.
if I'm gonna spend that time with you in the field and on the tailgate and stuff like that, man, how's your family? How they doing? I just want to
Yep.
know what life is like for folks. Good,
Right.
bad, blue, green, black, or brown.
Right. I ask those same questions all the time. How's your wife? How's your kids? How's your family? How are you doing? All of those questions. I don't I don't see it any other way. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not in your shoes. I'm not in your position. I have to think, because I like to see the good in people, that there's more Garys out there
Mm-hmm.
than the other way around. Um, I think,
I,
we talk about the mentorship,
mm-hmm.
and mentors being so crucial in getting that next generation into the field, and
Yeah.
growing our hunting community. Um, how do we? I'm sure there's a million people wondering the same question for all different avenues. We live in a hunting world, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
what we're talking about here. But how do we mentor others to feel included? Everybody.
Yeah. Well, I think it starts at the point of contact. And I want to answer that and I can give you my own solution to that, right?
Hmm.
What I'm doing about it. But I think it starts at the point of contact. To get everybody in, to me, it's like show someone else that looks like them what they're doing. Give them something relevant. Find something that is relevant to the experience. Even if I'm not even talking about, race or anything like that. Let's go off of that for a little bit and talk about one of my experiences, right? So earlier I said that when I gotten into it, deer hunting was not my thing, right? Like I got
Hmm.
into it and it was like, oh, okay, like, but I don't really like sitting in a tree. I don't, I'm not really interested in the horror stories that I've heard about people falling out of tree stands. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
really interested in that. And so to me, that's not relevant. It's not something that vibrates on my frequency. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yep.
it just
Yep. Yeah.
doesn't. And
Everybody
so
likes, they have their own passion. Yeah, I get that.
yeah. And so if I know that, I'm going to try to get people into something like ask. All right, well, these are the different types of hunting. Let me you got to do some digging, but find out what that person may very well be interested in, because sometimes the first experience of going out to the woods doesn't mean, or trying to get somebody out hunting into the woods, that doesn't mean put them up a stand. And I'm not faulting Eric or anybody for that. I mean, I had the choice to go too, but you got to find something that's relevant. You got to find out what they've done in the past that they enjoyed, that you can swing into, this hunting thing. You know what I'm saying? Like
Hmm.
there's a lot of different avenues, but I think it's an issue of relevance. I know that if I want to, I'm a brainy type of person. But I know that if I want to connect with somebody that's not even black, let's say they are um, Hispanic, right? And there are
Hmm.
differences there. Like, well, let's investigate cultural influences. That may be a little more familiar to that.
Hmm.
Like there's Argentine dove hunting, right? So maybe I can take you dove hunting to a good place where you're gonna get plenty shots. You're gonna have a good time. We can relax. You see what I'm saying? Like it's kind of
Yep.
casual.
Yep.
I'm,
Well,
and I'm just pulling stuff out the air.
yeah, I'll tell you, another friend of mine here. He lives in Minneapolis, and Kang Yang is his name. I met him,
Mm-hmm.
like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, something like that. Now, we
Mm-hmm.
hunted together, and we actually filmed a show this past winter. But he used to be an anti-hunter,
Interesting.
His yeah, it's very interesting. His father was a hunter, but he was an anti-hunter for a lot of reasons.
Hmm.
And he was given a dog, and the dog eventually changed him because he learned more and he
Hmm.
tried it. And now he's actually started up um, his own mentorship program to get more people the
Nice.
opportunity to hunt. And so he opened up through an app that's called Meetup. That's the name of the app. It's
Okay.
there's
Yeah.
a lot of apps out there, but he met people where they were with an opportunity, right? And
Yep.
so his I think his nationality would be Hmong. I know he
Hmm.
has taken out several other hunters in this time, but he has taken the time to one-on-one mentor them, and
Hmm.
they felt comfortable going out with him. And he got them firearm safety certified. He took them out into
Yep.
the field. He's taken them to different places. But the value of a mentor
Yep.
cannot. There's it's one of those things where this world, oh gosh, just more mentors out there. And so I try my best with my role in what I've come to do in this industry, but I see
Hmm.
what you have the opportunity to do. And I know when we talked before, Neil, your friend, to me,
Hmm.
Neil sounds like a Jackie Robinson in the hunting industry. And I
Neil
feel
is
like
he? Yeah.
we need to have a whole nother conversation. I mean, I want to know what it was like for him, but look what he's done for
Hmm.
you, for other hunters, and now
Hmm.
you're in that position too. And today we are in a place where other people, we're talking about it, we're listening.
Right.
I want to know your story, Durrell. I want to know what you're going through. I'd love to walk in a field with you and experience it. And I want to stay in touch and learn about other people that I know you're going to
Oh
influence
yeah.
and I know you're going to take out there and I know you're going to give them opportunities that you never had as
Hmm.
a kid. Your
Hmm.
kids. I mean, that's
Hmm.
exciting to me. It really is.
Well,
Um,
it's a responsibility, man, and I have.
yeah.
Yes, I'm in the process of a nonprofit and doing to in order to do exactly what you're saying, to leave something lasting, um, for our generations. So yeah,
What is your
yep, yep,
nonprofit?
yep. So pretty soon I will have a nonprofit, just waiting on everything to finalize, but it is the Minority Outdoor Alliance. And
Interesting.
yeah, so after all of this stuff kind of spurred, within the last few weeks, I really felt compelled, to do something, like to actually have something concrete to say, hey, look, like I'm not just talking on social media. I actually want to do something, being a Black representative in this. And I've said this before. I think part of the issue is not seeing us or any minority in the spaces that we need to be. And I saw a trend, over the last couple of weeks where a lot of organizations are like, hey, and a lot of large organizations, I mean, Pheasants Forever, and we're all doing something about it. But what I want to do is take my influence and my connections, my friends, my fellow hunters that are minorities, not just Blacks, everybody,
Hmm.
and create partnerships with larger organizations. So there are minority representatives to then reach out to, some of these minority communities. Because, and my logic was, if a white guy walks into a Black neighborhood to say, hey, let's go hunting, you're not going to be heard, period. You're just not. Like that's not going to happen. That's actually very like wired. What in the world? Like, what are we doing here? But if we get someone that's familiar and says, hey, that's also an expert in fishing or upland hunt or deer hunt. You see what I'm saying? And says, hey,
Yep.
let's go out, and I'm representing
Hmm.
Pheasants Forever. And maybe here's a magazine or here's some gear, however we need to craft it to have an incentive to say let's get more people into it. That's hopefully my not hopefully is going to be my contribution.
Hmm.
Everybody wants to do anything, but I've noticed that nobody really knows what to do because there are no representatives. There have been plenty of people that have tried, but it wasn't successful because it wasn't relevant. You know what I'm saying? Like it just has to be relevant. And I want to, like I said, create partnerships from leaders in the minority communities that are out there hunting, that are scattered throughout the country, and say, hey, look, here's Travis. Travis, let's come up with a solution.
Hmm.
You follow me? And
Yep.
then let's get out there and go. And I think a lot of that has to do with the responsibility of organizations and businesses. That's where your weight and that's where your power is going to be. So,
I mean, it is. Yeah, I fully support your mission. I would love to just continue this conversation. Um, I think on a personal level, individually, myself, you, anybody else that's listening, it might just be that invitation, right?
mm-hmm,
Because we don't experience something out of our norm without an
mm-hmm,
invitation from somebody. Most likely, there's not as many Durrell Smith out there that
mm-hmm,
says, I'm going to do this regardless of my circumstance or
right,
what's out there. You just kept on trying and you kept on trying. So
mm-hmm,
I hope there's a lot more people that seek that.
yeah,
It's hunting. We're in a space where the private land, I mean, public
mm-hmm,
land, the access to land. So if we give invitations to people, and it should be for everybody, right? We invite anybody and everybody to go out there and
absolutely,
experience and make it and accommodate it.
right,
And I think this conversation that we're having is hopefully a conversation that a lot of other people's have, and or a lot of other people have. And I know personally, just being open and opening this dialogue up, just
mm-hmm.
just you and I together. The last time we talked, even today, just knowing that it's okay to talk about this stuff. It's
It's
okay.
cool. We should be
It
talking
is.
about it.
Right. And now we are, okay? We
Yeah,
are. And let's
mm-hmm,
keep talking about it. Let's be
mm-hmm,
open and keep it up. Let's keep this up. There are way more Garys out there. There are way more
mm-hmm,
Durrells out there. There are way
mm-hmm,
more people out there that want the good, that want the equality than people that
mm-hmm,
don't, right? I
right.
believe that. I believe that
Oh,
with my
I
heart.
100% agree with it too. And there's going to be some pushback. Obviously, we've seen it.
Yep.
You can go, it is literally documented on social media. There is pushback. And the pushback is either the choice to be silent or the choice to refuse to believe that it actually goes on. And it can bother us or we can outweigh it. You see what I'm saying?
Hmm.
We can be bothered about it or we can do something about it.
Well, the conversation is powerful. One-on-one
Mm-hmm.
conversations are powerful. A lot of people might not know what to say or how to say it, but being open to conversations in every situation is for the
Mm-hmm.
best, especially this one. I firmly believe
Yeah.
that. We started
You know,
off at the beginning of this show and just saying, the power of prayer. I believe in
mm-hmm.
that. You
I
believe in
believe it.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know this is one thing that my wife and I we do daily with our kids. We pray with them and we say, Jesus, please help us love others the way that you love us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have adopted that into our prayers. When we are praying over our kids, my 9-month-old and the one on the way, I pray that my kids won't foster animosity, because there's that end of it, right? Like there's that end of all of this foolishness going on, and there's the lack of understanding and sometimes the lack of love on one end of it, but then there's harboring animosity, and that doesn't help either. You follow me? Like we all there's work to be done on so many different levels. It has nothing to do with what folks believe in, but believing in love. That's literally what it is. Everything else is on you. But we have to understand and listen to folks, pray to love other folks like Jesus loves us, and then again, release the animosity. We cannot foster that. You learn that being married. You learn that real quick being married.
Forgiveness is powerful, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and saying
man.
sorry too. Saying sorry is also very powerful
and
too.
meaning it, like not just saying it to say it. And I think that's the powerful thing about what's going on. There are people that are like, "Hey, sorry," and I legitimately feel it, and the sorry is accompanied by change. The sorry is accompanied by actionable steps. And that's what we got to do, man.
Well, Durrell, I'm sorry that you've been in positions that aren't fair. I'm sorry.
Well, and you know what? Thank you. And I receive that, and you and I both are going to be the catalyst of change. I can tell you that now.
There's a lot of us out there. I want to continue our conversation. We've been talking for a long time today. There's so much more to get into. Let's keep in touch. And Neil's story.
Yeah,
there's a lot there. We'll be back. We'll talk
that
again.
Is another episode. Yep.
Yep. All right. Well, we will continue the conversation. Until then, Jesus, please help us love others the way that you love us, right? Should we go forward that way today?
Yeah, I think we can let that be the end and a serious amen right there.
Amen. We'll catch you next time on the next episode of the Flesh Podcast.